Observe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Observe and Rapport podcast episode number 2. Episode number 1 was a success.
Yeah, people liked it. No,
people listened. I didn't look at the numbers.
the analytics were pretty good. People stopped listening about 37 seconds in, so I think we have
right about when you started talking.
We have an we have an hour and 40 minutes of extra time.
Perfect.
This podcast should be no more than 30 seconds long.
It's like scrap paper.
No, but realistically, the analytics were bad. Like people listened. No one listened to the whole thing, but people listened.
If you did, you're an absolute trooper, and you'll be the first person we look to when we come to Patreon. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, sure. Patreon app coming soon. So yeah, it was good, and we're thinking we're gonna keep it a little shorter going forward, and if that's a problem, I don't think it will be, but it seems to make sense anyway.
Yeah,
Who has time, Kyle? Nobody has time anymore.
I don't know. I don't even have time to talk to you for that long.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, but the thing is, and I was telling people this because people were asking, time fucking flies when you're talking.
Yeah,
It didn't feel like an hour and 40 minutes.
It did not feel like an hour and 40 minutes.
Not even close.
You don't realize how quick, if you try to set a time limit on a conversation, you don't realize how fast it goes.
Right. Like we've been talking for 20 minutes already. That's like, I'm telling you, you've watched.
No one's been listening for at least 19 minutes. If that's
no, but they're good. But we're gonna keep trudging through, right? What's the Chinese proverb? But every journey starts with one step, or something. We can say a few things here. We could you got to start somewhere. So just keep going, and we'll see. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, that sounds like a Chinese philosopher.
Yeah.
So
you just got back from, and listen, we had some offers, speaking of the analytics, while you were gallivanting in Hawaii and India, traveling the world. This guy, he starts a podcast. We're getting offers from Rogan. Call Her Daddy is like, you guys want to come on? I'm like, I'd love to, but the co-host went to Hawaii. He doesn't seem to really care about the show.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm not really interested in that. I think we're better off building our own thing. Like, what do they have to offer that, we can't?
Right.
So
no, that's what I told Joe. I was like, listen, Rogan, we appreciate it, but, we kind of want to do it on our own, if you don't mind. So
yeah, I don't really see the magic that they have over us.
Right.
So.
I agree. How was Hawaii?
Hawaii's awesome. It does not deserve to be a U.S. state at all.
It doesn't. Listen, let me tell you something. It's not. Okay,
it really is not.
It's not. It's 5,000. It's what? How many? How? It's what's the flight?
That's in probably almost 11-hour flight from New York to Hawaii directly.
Direct? You went direct?
Yeah, it's like 10 and a half hours, something and change.
No shit.
Yeah. So I mean, it was weird for us. It was our first time. I mean, we typically do a foreign trip, right? It's the first time you go to a place that feels foreign in every way, shape, or form. You're going from, cold weather to tropical weather, and everything should be different, but then everyone speaks English. There's no accent there.
Really?
So, like, even if you go from New York to, like, Florida, you hear a little bit of accents and stuff, but, like, in Hawaii, you don't really hear an accent. You're paying in American dollars. You have no issues renting a car, no issues driving. There's really no culture to adapt to.
Interesting.
So from that standpoint, it's odd. But I mean, obviously, it's gorgeous.
Right, because there's a volcano, and you're like, why is everyone speaking English?
I mean, it's a different level of like nature and gorgeous. We went to Kauai, which is where Jurassic Park is like famously filmed.
Really?
Dude, I mean, it's silly. It's
fun.
Like it's just the greenest place you've ever seen. It literally looks like the trailer.
Do you know who Israel Kamakawiwole is?
Yeah, Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Exactly. Everyone knows his cover of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But on that album, and I didn't just listen to this because you went to Hawaii. I always liked this album. On the album that song's on, there's the first track of the album is simply just called Hawaii. And he's from Hawaii. He was born in Honolulu. And it's a beautiful song. And it's on a ukulele, of course. And the opening line is in the native tongue, or what, I don't know if it's the Hawaiian language, and it's, I'll sing it. It's like, Uhamau, Okay, oh Hawaii na ikapono oh Hawaii, bro. And it's literally like you're crying because it's so good. And it's
This is the point where people stop listening.
yeah. Well, listen. That's you should listen to it if you.
That was beautiful.
I don't think I did that bad, to be honest. I didn't rehearse that at all. I've heard it 1,000 times.
I think if I put Shazam up while you were singing that, you would recognize.
They would be like, "Oh, that's Hawaii from the." But what that means is the beauty and life of this land is perpetuated in righteousness. And is that not what Hawaii is? I mean, you've been, I've never been, but when you see pictures, you're like, is this on planet Earth, this place?
It doesn't it also doesn't make sense like how people inhabited that island in the first place. Like people just like canoed. And like there's nothing close to it at all. So I have on my iPhone, for some reason my wallpaper, I guess with the new iPhone update, it shows you a map of the globe of where you are. So like right now it'll show a map of the world, and it just has like a pointer on New York, but you see kind of like the satellite image of the world with New York.
Sick.
And then when I went to India, it switches to India. When I went to Hawaii, it switches to Hawaii. And when you go to Hawaii, on that map, it's just the dot and then just blue ocean.
Yeah.
Every
you look
direction.
at it on Google Earth, you're like, are people here?
I just didn't get why people are there. And like, obviously one of the main reasons the U.S. got it was because it was like a strategic, location for like Asia. But
well, can I ask you about that? You said obviously, doesn't seem obvious to me really. What was the annexation about then? Like why did we is it like a pit stop in between Asia and here for us as far as exports and imports? Is that what it is?
I mean, I don't know enough about the history of how we got it and what caused it and what the negotiations were, but what was it like? It's pretty recent. It was
like the 70s or something.
No, I think it was
40s?
40s, 49 maybe.
It wasn't that long ago.
We could Google it, but why do that? Yeah, I forget which one was first, Alaska or Hawaii. But yeah, I mean, it was a strategic place, right? We had Pearl Harbor there.
Right.
And that was, when was Pearl Harbor? 41.
That was in the 40s.
So it was before then, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it was the 20s or 30s. I don't know.
The fuck do we know, huh?
But I mean, it's a strategic port between the U.S. and Japan and China, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to have. It's valuable.
Did you go to the Waffle House that Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler met in 50
So yeah,
First
I mean,
Date?
everything. If you've ever seen 50 First Dates, like when you're in Hawaii, that's like all you think about the whole time. It's like every scene in 50 First Dates, right. But the spam and stuff.
Yeah, Spam and Reese's, right?
It was cool, yeah. So we went to Kona, which is on the Big Island.
Did you go to the brewery?
Went to the brewery. The brewery was a disappointment.
Was it?
Which a lot of people have told us. It's like Kona is a cool brand. It's like founded by Hawaiian owners. I met the owners.
No way.
Because I used to work for Anheuser-Busch, which owns Kona. But they have such a cool opportunity to make it a really awesome experience going to the Kona brewery. But in my opinion, like it was similar to going to like, I don't know, like a local like sports bar.
Right.
It was like very underwhelming. And I was like, this is it? Like you get your beer inside. And I'm like, how is there not an outdoor area? So that was disappointing. But we were there.
You should get like a free surf lesson there or something, like they should make like a whole brand about it.
But we were there. It was the week before the Ironman triathlon, which is in Kona every year.
Big fucking deal.
Which I didn't realize. Because we got there, I'm like, damn, everyone's in shape. Everyone's running and cycling and swimming.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the locals were not happy about that because I guess they kind of like take over the town, the triathletes.
Yeah. Did you do any did you climb a volcano or anything like that?
Yeah, we did some hikes and stuff. We went to one of 4 green sand beaches in the world.
Green sand.
Green. Yeah, because of the volcano. It has something to do with the ash and the rock of the volcano that when it dries or when the ocean hits it and it dries, it turns into green. Some
chemical reaction.
Don't remember what it was.
Sulfur, maybe.
But there's literally only 4 on the planet. Like 2 are in New Zealand, 1's in Hawaii, and I don't remember what the 3rd one is or the 4th. But we had to hike 3 miles through like fucking desert to get there, and then once you get there, it's like a literal oasis.
Yeah.
Like you have to take a ladder down a cliff, and it's just like a beach that can only fit maybe 50 people, and it's just the most gorgeous, clear blue water ever. So cool.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
And You went there first and then to India?
No, I did India first.
India first.
So we had planned Hawaii.
Jesus
my buddy,
Christ.
yeah,
What
my
the hell are you
buddy
doing?
was getting married in Maui. So we figured me and Lauren never got to do like a true honeymoon. So we were like, all right, this is a good excuse, one, to go to Hawaii, and two, to like, you know, do our first 2-week vacation like since the pandemic.
As a married couple, right?
And as a married couple. So we made a 2-week trip out of that. But then, like, you know, a month prior, my job was like, hey, we're going to send you to our Bangalore, India office for a week.
Bangalore, India is where geographically in India?
It is, I've been trying to figure out a good way to describe it. It is in the center.
The center of India.
So not in the center in terms of like between the oceans. So, you know, India's
Yeah.
on the west side, it's ocean. On the east side, it's ocean. So
Right.
it's in the center there, meaning it's not near the ocean, but it's closer to the southern tip.
Okay, I got
It's
you.
not near the southern tip.
Because India does kind of like a point down, and it's towards the bottom of the point, but in the middle. Gotcha.
So it's centrally located. Where we were staying was, I mean, you didn't really get the true experience of being in India by any means. We stayed in the Ritz-Carlton. So, I mean,
you ate McDonald's. Like,
yeah,
it's not-
no, I mean, we had to like walk to the office, which was a 15-minute walk. The biggest culture shock I got that people warned us about was crossing the street.
Oh, one of those places.
Yeah, and
there's
I'm like,
no traffic laws anywhere.
So I work, I you know, do Zoom calls with a lot of the guys in the Indian office, and I'm close friends with a lot of guys who have moved from Bangalore to New York. And they're like, yeah, man, just be careful about crossing the street. And I'm like,
You're like, what?
I'm from New York.
Yeah, I'm from New York City. I know how to cross the
I
street.
know how to cross the street.
Thank you.
Like, I get, like, tell the people from Kansas City to be careful.
Right,
Like,
right.
I got this. And dude, so the first day I walked to the office and, the first day you're kind of jet lagged. So they're letting you like just settle in. You don't have to go to the office. So I'm just like, all right, let me walk around, get a feel for the area.
Sure.
And dude, I crossed the first street and I'm like, holy shit. No, it's not even how fast the cars are going. It's the volume of cars. It is.
Well,
and
there's
like,
2 billion people in
so the
India.
sidewalks, to be clear, the sidewalks are fine. You're walking on the sidewalk, totally normal. But then the street, it's like 4 or 5 lanes. And this city was built for 3 million people in like, you know, the 1920s.
Right.
There's like
Now it's like 20
18 million people there
Right,
now.
right.
So it's just buses, it's rickshaws, it's mopeds. And the funniest thing to me is no one uses blinkers. They don't use blinkers to like say, I'm going left or I'm going right as a courtesy. They just honk. So everyone just beeping the entire time.
Right.
So
Chaos.
all you
Chaos.
hear is beeping. So every beep is significant, yet none of them are at the same time.
Right.
So, and then there's
Well, it doesn't mean anything really.
and then there's crosswalks, but the like walking sign, there's no countdown. It just goes from walking to like don't walk.
Oh
So
shit.
like you have no idea how much time
So
you
you can be in
have.
the middle of the street, don't walk. Oh
So
shit.
So literally, I just like my first time crossing the street. Like first, I was like, "Oh, I'm ballsy. I'm from New York. I'm gonna cross the street." And then like noticed none of the cars slowed down or like
Yeah.
stopped. So they just trust me to like weave in between them.
Right.
And then the second time, I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna like hang on to like a local's shirt
Right.
and just like walk with him.
Exactly.
I'm gonna wait till he goes and follow
Exactly.
his lead." But yeah, it was. I mean, I had to walk back and forth from the office, you know, a number of times, and it was not.
That's horrible. So is it that there's no traffic lights? There's traffic. It's just like it's a free for all. It's like get out of the way.
It's like, have you ever seen that meme? It's like a green stop sign.
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
Right.
yeah, you can stop.
No, but I'll tell you, I go on some fucked up websites sometimes just because you feel like watching someone get their head cut off. It's just whatever.
No,
and
I don't get that.
Some people get it.
Okay.
It's whatever. I'm not weird. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it's just you know what it is? It's about being aware of what's going on out there.
Right. Just
Like, you don't go
how
to
you listen
Brazil.
to
You
Hawaiian music.
Just don't go to Brazil
It's true.
because you're gonna get your head cut off. So, but there's every once in a while there is like a foreign city that is like you're talking about, super chaotic intersection. And it's just insane, right? And someone will literally just get destroyed by a car or a bus or whatever, and they're just laying there in the street. And it's not they just drive around the body. It's not like they pick. I mean, eventually someone comes, but like nothing stops. It's just, let's keep it going. And hey, people get hit sometimes. What are you gonna do? And I heard statistically though, those intersections, the one that you're talking about, even there's actually less accidents than there are as opposed to like ones with lights and all these like precautions and whatever. It goes to the whole thing that sometimes, the more you try to prevent something, the more likely you are to cause it. Like all those like cameras we have on Long Island,
right,
where you can't run a red light anymore. Accidents actually went up for rear fender benders because people are slamming on their brakes.
Exactly.
So here we go, ruining things again. I was going to ask you though, did they see you as like a gringo foreigner, and did anyone like, hey man, like just stay behind me,
No, I mean,
like, you must have met up with people in the company who are from India.
Oh yeah.
So,
and also all the Indian people and interactions I had were super nice.
Of course,
they're so much fun, like just down to party all the time because like Indian weddings are insane.
Dude, you're riding an elephant.
So get this, I'm talking to one guy in the office who's like our age. His wedding I think was actually this week, but a month ago he was getting ready for his wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, oh, like I've heard of Indian weddings. I'm like, what do you have, like 400 or 500 people coming? He goes, 1,000. I'm like, okay,
1,000 people.
He goes, here's what you don't understand: Indian weddings literally run the Indian economy. He goes, do you realize like how many jobs like one Indian wedding weekend just provides? And I'm like, dude, like how is that even like economically feasible?
Right.
Because like he's like, we have to pay for 1,000 guests for 3 days. We have to pay for all of their meals, all of their hotels, plus just like the wedding in general. And I'm
Holy
like,
shit.
And I'm like, how many of those 1,000 people would you say you actually know who they are? And he's like, maybe 200. And I'm like, because what they'll do is like that morning or like the weekend before the wedding, they'll get their hair cut and they'll invite their barber to the wedding and he'll come.
Right.
The male guy will come and they'll just be, hey, my son's getting married this weekend, come on along. And they'll come. So like everyone is just incentivized to go to these weddings because it comes around.
So it's like it's within the interest of the country. Like, hey, why not go to a wedding?
And also like, so the first night I get there, and again, I've dealt with a lot of these Indian coworkers before, but I've never met them in person. We're always, usually for me, because of the time difference,
1,000 people.
I'm talking to them.
Insane.
I'm talking to them at like 9 a.m. New York time, and it's like 6:30 or 7 o'clock their time. So anyway, I get there the first night. Again, I'm jet lagged. I want to take it easy. I'm like, all right, I'll have a few beers or whatever. We go to a brewery. They have like a lot of breweries in Bangalore. Bangalore is like the Silicon Valley of India. So it's very techy. Everyone speaks English.
Gotcha.
So we go to a brewery, and I'm expecting everyone to be sitting at like a long table, drinking beer steins, like pretzels and naps and stuff. Dude, full on dance party.
Mm-hmm.
Like coworkers, like dancing on tables,
right.
like men, women, like not grinding, but like dancing, like we
together.
We would never dance with coworkers in America at all. And
HR.
This is like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So like they're not drunk. And I'm like, this is awesome. These people are just down to dance. They like pull me in, and I'm like just living in it and having fun. And they're so much fun.
That's
and like the
fucking
Indian
awesome,
music
man.
is just like gives you a different energy, man. It's really cool.
Indian music is, every time I hear it, because I'm a musician and I know that they have what they call semitones in between notes. Like we deal with the typical 8 notes in an octave kind of thing. But they have this different understanding of tonality where in between, like, for example, a C and a D, there's these semitones in between them. And that's where the whole, and I know I already sang
it's
on
like
this
the yodeling,
episode.
like the yeah.
Yeah, it's these slight cadences that you can seep into and dive back down out of. And man, it speaks to your soul. Like it's just so organic the way their music is incredible. And also their new, like they call it modern Indian, like it's like techno kind of. It's not techno, but it's fun. It's hard.
It's fun,
like
dude.
Hard dance music with that on top of it. Fucking A, man.
So
I would lose my mind.
The last night I was there, we were on like an awesome rooftop, like a fancy rooftop party, like you see over the entire Bangalore like city, and they're playing like American techno music. It's like Avicii and like Swedish House Mafia, like standard pop stuff. And all the Indians are kind of like bummed out. They're dancing, but they're like,
yeah, 'cause it's garbage, dude.
And like they're just like, yeah. We're just waiting for them to put on the Indian music. And he's like, then you'll see.
Yeah.
And dude, sure enough, like as he says that, the DJ switches to Indian music. Everyone fucking sprints to the dance floor.
Absolutely.
My guy Prayansh, shout out to Prayansh if he's listening, brings me to the dance floor. I'm the only white person in a sea of Indian people, just fucking like pounding on the dance floor, just like having so much fun.
Dude, the weddings must be sick.
It was. I will honestly say probably top 10 night, just like
of your life,
that 20 minutes of dancing was a top 10 like moment of my life. It was so much fun that I went to all my American coworkers after that, and I was like, you have to go upstairs and go dance. That was so much fun.
Right.
Their energy and like
awesome.
they just encourage each other, and like the women dancing is beautiful. The men dancing, it's almost like a competition for who can be sillier.
Sure.
So
I've
it's just
seen this on Instagram.
So it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
I have videos on my Instagram too that I could share, but it's just, it gave me a whole new appreciation for them too, because like you deal with them at work and like they're very serious and stuff, and then you see them just dancing, like acting like a fool. And it's so much fun.
No, that happens at American weddings too, though. Like if you go to an American wedding, I was just at one. My best friend just got married, and there were people there. Like his Uncle John, for example, who was just like a very serious, like, I'm a businessman, I own a fisherman route, and I make money in Mont. But this guy was dancing like a maniac, and that's why these things are so important. Like if you're out there and you're thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna have a wedding, it's too expensive. It doesn't fucking matter. You're gonna make money. You're gonna get paid again next Thursday. Just have it, because those moments you said. I mean, it was the best top 10 moments of your fucking life.
Yeah.
Bro, you can't buy that. Priceless. What commercial was that?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know.
MasterCard or something.
MasterCard.
But look, those events bring that out of people, man. Those things are so important.
And it's one thing, like I just wrote my 30 life lessons on my 30th birthday. Check it out on observerreport.com. It's not a big deal. But one of the things that like you always see on a lot of these lists of like, 90-year-olds write their life advice, and it's like, get up there and dance. Like regardless of how dumb you look, it's a hell of a lot funner than sitting on the back
there like a bump on a log.
And it's so fucking true. Like I used to be, when I was like in high school or even like early college, I was like, I'm not dancing. Like I'm too cool for that, or like that's lame.
People are gonna think.
But then once you actually just let go of it and just dance and like literally not give a shit what you look like,
right?
It is the most freeing, and like I know it sounds hippy dippy, but like it is the most fun experience, because that's what music is meant for. It's meant for you to just fucking feel and just let your body
express yourself. Literally, like that's what that's the point of it.
Yeah.
And don't worry about like people say like, hey, like no, you're not gonna look stupid. It's like, no, you're gonna look stupid.
You will. Yeah.
It's about not giving a shit what anybody thinks, because who gives a shit what anybody thinks about you dancing? And it's just, I hate when people are at weddings and they're just like standing there staring at you, because you know me, man. Wedding Keith is a fucking.
Oh yeah.
I'm out of my goddamn mind.
That's
I'll have a heart
fantastic
attack.
pictures from our wedding.
Yeah, I will have a heart attack on a dance floor. I don't care. I gotta get that feeling, and I'm like, so
like Tommy Boy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dad. Yeah, but that's what that shit's all about. So you went to India, Bangalore, and you were there for how long again?
4 nights.
4 nights. So this guy flies to India.
18 hours.
18-hour flight, no layover. Yes.
A layover in Dubai. Yeah.
In Dubai. Did you see the Burj?
With
your own eyes?
Barely.
But did you see it with your own eyes?
Kinda. It was foggy, so like, dude, it was actually kind of nuts. So when we land, I can see the Dubai, like, what do you call it? The skyline, right?
Sure.
And like you see some of the buildings that you've seen before on the internet and stuff. And I'm like, oh, where's the Burj Khalifa? Like, it should be popping up, right? It's gigantic.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. So I'm like, all right, that's a bummer. Maybe it's too foggy. We come back. We have our 2-hour layover. We get back on our flight. As we're like pulling away, I look back out the window to the same skyline, and a little bit further away, you see the base. So I maybe only saw like a third of the Burj Khalifa. And dude, just that third, because it was so foggy.
Right.
I was like, holy, it doesn't look real.
No, it does.
And dude,
even in pictures,
the bottom third of the building is taller than everything around it. And it does not look fucking real.
Yeah. I mean, I work at the Trade Center, and I was looking at it today because it's a beautiful day. It was sunny or whatever. And you can't believe it. Sometimes you walk out, get a slice, whatever. You look up at the building, you're like, Man, that is awesome. I mean, it's incredible, but my point is that building is what, 1,100 feet tall, and the Burj
no, isn't it 1776? Wasn't that the whole joke of it?
Is it?
Yeah, like
No, the Burj is.
Oh, I'm talking about the World Trade
The
Center.
World Trade Center is 17? No fucking way.
It was. I don't know if that's
That
fact
can't
now,
be.
but when it came out, that was how they were like touting it. It was like, oh,
Really?
it's gonna be like the Freedom Tower, 1776.
That'd be pretty cool. But I don't know if that's true, but all I know is that whatever numbers it is, I remember looking at the difference on like Wikipedia or something of the difference between the height. The Burj is twice as tall as the Freedom Tower, bro. So you look at the Freedom Tower, imagine something twice as tall, bro. You can't. Like it's so fucking unbelievable.
I used to work in One World Trade, and same thing. I would look up at it every day and be like, how the fuck did like humans build that? But also, talking about the view, because I was only on like the 22nd floor or something, but every now and then I'd go up to like the 84th floor. That's like where the elevator bank switches to the higher ones. And like half the days it's too foggy up there to even see anything. So I can't imagine if that's the 84th floor of the World Trade Center, what's it like in the Burj Khalifa on like the fucking
the
190th
floor or whatever,
yeah.
bro. I mean, like for real. And people actually, I mean, there's a video of Will Smith standing on top of it. Like, because they've made it so that you can do that. You can stand on the tippy top of that building.
Nope.
I mean, you're harnessed in, of course, but I mean, bro, it's truly incredible. And now they're talking about, I don't know if you know this, but now there's these people now. I guess they're kind of like Imagineers, like in Disney, where like, can you imagine if we did this? They're like hypothetical architects, they call them, and they're the plan is to build a giant ring, an elevated, like it's like half the height of the Burj, and it's a huge ring that will be, you can occupy it with people. It's gonna be like a little mini city, and the inside of it will be.
Yeah,
did you see this?
Yeah.
And it's like a concept. It's like an architectural concept, and but apparently it's like totally like it's like gonna happen. And it'll be like the first of its kind, where it's like a little mini city inside.
Isn't Dubai like in the fucking desert with so much land? Why do they need to build up?
I know, right? Like that's the thing on Manhattan.
At least
Island,
Manhattan, you're limited in
skyscrapers only
space.
became a thing because we were running out of space.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but now it's about, hey, we have the tallest building in the world, not you. No, they're also doing this in Egypt, I think, in the desert. They're building the first. Like Halo, the concept of Halo, the video game, where Halo is like it's a ring, but it's occupied by aliens or human beings, and it's a civilization living within the ring, and it just orbits through space.
I actually didn't know that, and I played that video game too.
Yeah, so they're doing what's called the Line. It's going to be a new city they're building, and it's
where?
I think in Egypt. I think it was in Africa. I think this was the proposition and it'll be for about 20 million people, and it will be just like a literal slice of like just civilization in the middle of the desert, and it's just a perfect line of a city, like just completely. I mean, it's incredible what they're coming up with.
I'm just thinking of the was it Sam Kinison joke?
Yeah,
about the
just
kids
move or whatever. He's like,
maybe we wouldn't have to send you food if you didn't live.
Yeah, if you didn't live where all the fucking food wasn't,
But I wanted to switch the conversation a little bit to books. So
yeah,
what are you reading right now?
Right now, oh wow, man, this is a good one. So I don't know if you, his name is, I don't know where to put this. I'm just gonna put it right here. Mikhail Bulgakov is a Russian author. He wrote what's apparently one of the greatest Russian novels of all time. It's considered. It's called The Master and Margarita. And man, the Russians. Say what you will, but they know how to write.
I just read Crime and Punishment.
Oh, really? I know.
Yeah.
Actually, I did know that. But didn't you say it wasn't? Just be honest.
It was good. It was very, very well written.
Yeah,
really good.
You did say that. That's what I mean. They just know how to talk.
It was just. It was pretty beautiful.
Sentences, you go, Jesus Christ.
And it's translated, so you're not even getting the full picture. But even just like reading. There would be a chapter where absolutely nothing happened. And I'm like, this is not relevant to the plot whatsoever. But it was beautiful. It was like, holy shit. This is like, it got a lot of human emotion, a lot of human
I think that
character.
So I think so to your point, I think that's the whole thing, because like American authors will, like, it's about the story, like, and how good the story is. And I think that in Russian novels and literature in general, it's about the flow of the writing. Because this book I'm reading, Master and Margarita, is, I don't know what to say about it. I don't really know what it's about yet. I'm not done with it. But so far, it's about two gentlemen so far who are just having an afternoon in Moscow, and they're sitting on a bench, and they get approached by a very tall man wearing a suit and tie and a hat, and his eyes are two different colors, and he just comes up to them and starts speaking to them in perfect Russian. And they're kind of confused as to who this guy is. You know, like, he doesn't look Russian, yet he's speaking perfect Russian, and blah, 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 blah. And turns out, like, you when you start reading this, you think it's going to be like a comedy, because it's quite funny. There's a lot of belching and a lot of, like, stupid jokes they're making while sitting on the bench. And then this guy starts talking to them about, well, just about, not really anything in particular, but through the conversation, it gets to the point where you realize this guy is Satan himself.
Oh.
And he's talking to them for reasons I don't know yet. But they ask him, how can you prove that you're the devil or whatever? And then the writer just takes this complete right turn and starts going into, man, when I tell you, a unbelievably well-written and poetic, like Dante's Inferno poetic, so perfect, telling of Jesus's trial with Pontius Pilate after he was brought to the authorities back in the day in the story of the Bible. But but can you imagine, like, everyone knows that Jesus got in trouble for apparently starting a revolution in the streets or whatever, but this is the dialogue that this guy kind of created in his own mind between Jesus and the judge. And it's this dialogue between, like, and in the conversation between the judge and Jesus, the judge starts to realize, like, hey man, this guy really might be the Son of God. And it kind of gives you like an insight to how, like, let's just say, like, whether you believe in God or not, whatever, but Jesus probably existed, and that whole story probably did unfold. Maybe, like, the particulars weren't the same, but the general story probably happened, right? There was a guy named Jesus. He got killed for claiming to be the Son of God, blasphemy, whatever. But through the dialogue, you realize, like, how this definitely could have happened, right? This definitely could have happened through misunderstandings in the street and at the time what people believed. And but this is what I'm saying. I don't know what to say about this book yet, because then that part of the novel, like, kind of wraps up, and then you go back to the bench, and now it's Satan and these two guys again, and I don't really know what he wants with them. But I've never been more, like, absolutely involved in the flow of the way this book is going. Like, most books, like, the story is what's getting you, like, oh, what's going to happen next? This is just like, I can't wait to see this, the way he puts this next phrase. This guy was a genius. Mikhail Bulgakov is the author. Yeah.
I was just hoping for a simple answer.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but it's just, I couldn't give you one, because if I was reading, Pretty Little Horses or something, like, that would be one thing, but which I am, by the way, because it's a classic. I'm sorry, All the Pretty Horses. It's a good one. It's a Western. It's okay, but that is what.
Where did you hear this book?
I heard of this book on a podcast. I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Lex Friedman, because
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think it was him. I think he mentioned Mikhail Bulgakov,
cultural
and
guy.
yeah, and he was saying that, and it's actually a really funny thing in the book. He goes, if you're the devil, like, that, how am I gonna die then? And it's just a funny little thing that Satan goes. He's like, okay, you're 5'8". You were born in October, Saturn, Jupiter. Someone's going to cut your head off. Like, it's just like, but, like, have you ever read a book where Stephen King has the ability to do this too, where, like, you think someone might have an intention and you're not quite sure, and then it becomes the reality, what you were thinking, and you're like, I fucking knew it.
You know what I
mean?
I recently heard a good I'm more of obviously a nonfiction fan, but something that all good fiction writers adhere to is that every character should have a secret.
Ah.
And once you realize that, you're like, oh, that's what makes a good book.
Right.
Is even the main character should have a secret that you don't know. Like, even if it's a series, there should always be something that you kind of don't really know about them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, why are they doing it this way? Or why are they,
Sure.
Right?
Well, what's interesting too, like, not to get back to it, and I want to bring up just why Satan's, like, you have to imagine, like, culturally at the time, this book's kind of old, like, why this matters is because Russia at the time, that we're talking about atheist Russia, like, a big issue in the culture.
What year
at the time,
is this? Like,
probably like 1921 or, like around that
so
time.
Stalin comes into power in the 30s? Or late 20s?
I think he might have been in power in the 20s at some point.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not sure the exact year. But definitely the whole idea of God and that whole thing is collapsing, and atheist Russia is a thing, and all these people are walking around in the streets with this, like, godless mentality of, like, can you believe how ridiculous all this bullshit is? And then all of a sudden Satan himself shows up, and the whole story with Jesus at Punctius comes up because they say, how do you know he existed? Because he's insisting that Jesus is real and God is real. And the two men on the bench are like, no, he's not. And how could you prove it? And he says, because I was there. And then the story starts and you realize, oh, this guy's the devil, man. And I can't wait to see what happens, because
So what does that have to do with Margarita?
that's what I'm saying. I don't know what
Pizza?
this book. What's that? Yeah, maybe
The pizza?
maybe the devil likes Margarita. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't think
Is it a long book?
it's
I feel like all Russian novels are usually
they're like five. It's like
900
in the 5 to 6 area.
That was what I didn't like about Crime and Punishment. It was freaking like,
Well, that's the thing.
700 pages,
But
and
that's
I'm
the
like,
thing.
this could have been
Dude,
300.
The
easily.
brothers Karamazov is 1,100 pages long, and
Yeah.
it's not. And the story could be told in a paragraph, but it's not about that. It's about the dance, if
Yeah.
you will, of reading the book.
I will say, Crime. Again, I'm not a big fiction reader, so like, I try to get into it more. But Crime and Punishment was the first book. I actually, after each chapter, at least in the beginning, I had to go to Spark Notes for the
Right.
for the synopsis of like,
Right.
what was that chapter about?
Right.
Because, like, again, they'll talk. It'll be two characters that aren't related to the plot, just talking about just nonsense, and I'm like, all right, I need to go to Spark Notes and see how is that tied
Yeah.
into it. And sometimes it's not at all. You're just like, all right,
Sometimes I wonder a lot of the time, is it nonsense? Because sometimes it can be, because a lot of authors they're drunks and they just kind of they
Yeah.
just write whatever. But that's what I'm reading. I also that's the fiction. I also mentioned that I've finished reading The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
Van der Kolk. Yeah.
Van der Kolk is his name. Bessel van der
That's a
Kolk.
good one. I read that
Yeah.
like a year ago.
Yeah, and I was going to say it was a recommendation of Observe and Rapport before we started the show, and I
Oh,
was
thank you.
following you. I bought it. Actually, my wife bought it, and I was looking for a book to read, and she was like, you should read this one. I feel like you would think it's interesting because I'm into, like, the brain and whatever and why people think what they think. And, I didn't – what's great about nonfiction is, God, you learn so much, man.
That's what
You
I'm
learn
obsessed with.
so much.
So some of my followers, and you know who you are if you're listening, rag on me for not reading enough fiction. And I'm like, first off, I'm not here to recommend you fiction. I'm here to recommend you the books that I like.
Yeah.
But
Gives a shit what you think.
But the reason I keep going back to nonfiction is because I'm just obsessed with, like, every time I read a nonfiction book, I learn something so cool.
Right.
And, like, that I just can't escape that. I can't. If I have a choice of a nonfiction book to learn something new, I'm always going to pick that over a fiction book that really it might be entertaining, but it's not going to, like, teach me a lot about something practical, which I'm trying to get over that because I do think fiction has a lot of value to it for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm obsessed with learning really cool things, especially about, like, human psychology and
Sure.
But
Well, can I give an example of
Yeah.
from The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk again? I always used to wonder how, because the book deals a lot with trauma and why trauma exists and how it manifests itself throughout the body. And I always used to wonder, how can someone who, for example, has been sexually mistreated by somebody in their family or something horrible like that happens to them, how can they ever feel guilty? because obviously fuck this person, right? Obviously they did this to me, and I should be, vengeful, if anything, not guilty. I didn't do anything wrong. And this book answered that question for me because, he's obviously a doctor and he deals with patients of his own. And in his experience, and he explained, think about it, when you're a child and something like that happens to you through an uncle or a cousin or a father or a mother, to you, this person is everything. They're your whole world. They're your guardian. They care for you. They give you food. They give you love. They give you shelter and clothing. Yet, this horrible thing has been done unto you by this person, right? So the psychology works like this. They think, well, I must have done something wrong.
Right.
I must have played some part in this, because why would this person who supposedly loves me more than anything in the whole world, why would they do this to me then if I didn't have anything to do with it? Because, and it breaks my heart. I actually cried reading this book because he talks a lot about Vietnam veterans dealing with their problems and stuff like that. But anyway, it taught me that trauma is actually it's rooted in shame.
Yeah.
It's all rooted in shame. It's all rooted in this feeling of like, whatever happened to me happened because it was my fault. It must have been because, so anyway, those questions that you have about, a lot of the time you have these aggressive reactions to things when in reality you're just not informed about the subject. And that's why nonfiction is great.
And and what I liked about Body Keeps the Score is I've always been a big fan of yoga. And a lot of people think because yoga is surrounded by a lot of,
woo-woo shit.
Woo-woo, it sounds hippy-dippy and stuff. And I love yoga and the practice of it and how it makes me feel. But I've always shied away from the instructors that get super, into the, the chi and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
your energy
but
is great.
But yoga itself, the Indian practice, is rooted in similar philosophies of the Body Keeps the Score, in that the body holds on to a lot of pain and trauma. And in the yogic tradition, I think I talked about this on the last podcast, but it's called a samskara.
Yeah, you did.
Samskara, which is basically, imagine having whatever physical trauma, emotional trauma has happened to you in the past, it being like a thorn in your ribs or in your body somewhere. And your entire personality after that, because you're ashamed of it,
right,
whatever it might be, you're built up in trying to protect that thorn and not letting people see it. And what yoga tries to do is let you express your full body range of motion so that you feel comfortable in your own body enough to be vulnerable and to feel comfortable and to feel open and expressive and to let a lot of that samskara pain energy out. So like even reading it, I'm like, this, hippy dippy shit and it's woo woo. But when you start to understand the Body Keeps the Score and you listen to different Buddhist philosophies and different traditions of other, cultures of trauma and how they deal with it, you're like, oh, all this is interrelated in some way.
Totally.
The body does hold on to energies, which is why when you feel stressed, your back and neck start hurting, right? But do you ever have back or neck pain when you're on vacation, when you're on a beach?
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, I mean, and he talks about that's why I love, the reductionist way of going about it too, because these people, they're so important, the doctors, the scientists, because they get down to the molecule, right, about what's going on a lot of the time. And he explains in the book that from a neurology perspective, they do what's called a PMRI, I think it is. I forget what the P stands for, but it's a magnetic resonance image of the brain, and they take people who have been through a car accident or something like that, and they put them in an MRI machine basically, and they look at their brain scans as they narrate their experience, what happened to them, right? And they look at the brain while they're reliving the story of their trauma, and the parts of the brain that are responsible for pain or for visual interpretation from the outside world, they're activating as this story is being read to them. So if, for example, everyone knows like a cliche example of like a Vietnam War veteran diving behind a trash can when a bus runs by, because they're reliving their trauma for some. But what you have to and I didn't know this, it's not that they're just frightened of loud noises. They are actually seeing what happened to them 30 years ago again. And that part of the brain that's seeing that the same part that activates when you're getting new information visually activates when those things are being relived or similar situations happen. It triggers them again. So these people are actually suffering in real time from what they experienced that traumatized them. It's actually fascinating.
I'm so deeply fascinated in like the human brain, and like I think they talk about how similar to like the ocean, it is as undiscovered as the ocean. Right? I think it's only we've discovered
absolutely
20% of the ocean or something like that.
Right.
I'm probably way off, but similar to the human brain, we know nothing in comparison or relatively speaking about the brain, and that's why like
highly recommended that book. I mean, it's truly incredible.
And that's also why I'm so interested in stuff like psychedelic therapy, and like because it just opens up your brain into different spheres of thinking, different spheres of reality, healing, all that stuff, and you just realize how fragile the brain is, but also how unbelievably adaptive it can be if you give it the right things and treatments. Really crazy.
To wrap it up, I want to ask you the same question, just because I know you're reading something.
Yeah.
So what are you reading?
Right now I'm reading, it's a book called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman.
How long is that that's a long time.
4,000 Weeks, the title is based on the average, life expectancy of a male, really? How many weeks you would live in your life. So, based on the like subtitle of the book, which is Time Management for Mortals, you think the book is all about, how to manage your time effectively,
right. And drink enough water,
maximize your 4,000 week, but it's actually the opposite. So Oliver Burkeman, the author, he used to have a column in the New Yorker, and he was all about productivity. So everything he did, every week he'd write a column about, how to maximize your productivity, put your calendar into 15-minute chunks and like do things for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute rest and like maximize your time. And for doing this for years and years and years, he realized like this is not the way to live. And this book is basically about his experience in trying to maximize your time, which we're all guilty of, myself included, of trying to plan things all the time, trying to plan your life and structure your life in a certain way that everything follows according to plan. But he kind of goes the opposite way, where he says nothing ever goes according to plan. He goes, plans are literally just thoughts, right? He goes, think about your entire life. You've planned out.
Plans are thoughts.
Plans are thoughts. That's all they are.
I love that.
Plans never go according to plan, right? They never go perfectly.
Never, dude.
Ever.
Literally never.
Ever. So he basically says, like, not in a bad way, but he's like, give up on the fantasy that plans go according to the way you think they're going to go, and that you have any control over the future, or that the future has any obligation to uphold your plans. He goes, as soon as you start accepting the fact that you have literally no control over the future and you can only focus on the present, that's when you really start living. And I'm doing a terrible job of surmising the book, but there's just so many valuable nuggets of like just not stressing over little shit about time, and like thinking about everything as, oh, I need to make sure there's a means to this end of everything that I'm doing. So it's interesting.
4,000 Weeks.
4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. It got recommended to me through a few podcasts. I heard enough people mention it. I was like, I got to check this out. So it's really good. There's a lot in there about just like not being anxious and not, over fretting about your time. It's cool.
Ohanau K.O. Onaya Ikapono O Hawaii.
Cheers. Sure.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. It was a pleasure. We'll see you again next time, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.